My sister pinned something awful on me to cover up her own secret, and because of that, I lost everything. It wasn't until her husband's private investigator dug up some text messages that the truth finally came to light and flipped everything upside down. I'm a 33-year-old guy, and my relationship with my family, especially my parents and my 31-year-old sister, Haley, is distant, to say the least. We rarely talk, and honestly, I've grown used to it. That's just how it's been for a long time. But before I dive into all that, let me say this. I've noticed the channel's been slowing down a bit lately. If you're here and you like these stories, hitting that subscribe button is the easiest way to show support. It's fast, it's free, and it really helps keep this community growing strong. The gap between us goes way back, rooted in things that happened years ago. For over 10 years now, I haven't been invited to any family get-togethers, no holidays, no weddings, none of it. I've never gone, and they've never asked. It's been an unspoken agreement that we just don't do family stuff together. But something recently shifted. Haley and her husband, Derek, had a baby boy last year. Then, a few weeks back, something unexpected showed up in my mailbox, a formal invitation to my nephew's first birthday party. What caught my eye was that it wasn't just some generic invite. It came directly from Derek. I recognized his handwriting from a thank you card he'd sent me a while ago for a wedding gift I mailed him. I read the invite several times, just to be sure I wasn't misreading it. It was definitely addressed to me, and it was definitely for a family gathering. After thinking it over for a few days, I made up my mind. I'd go. Maybe enough time had passed. I wasn't expecting hugs and happy tears or anything like that, but I figured showing up was the decent thing to do. Derek had reached out, and I felt like I should respond in kind. I hopped online and ordered a gift for my nephew, a nice set of classic children's books. I also requested the day off work, which got approved right away. I didn't tell anyone about the invite. Didn't seem like there was any need to. I just quietly made my plans. But about a week before the party, I got a phone call from my mom. That was a shock. We haven't spoken on the phone in years. Still, I answered. She jumped right into it. No hello, no small talk. Her voice was flat, like she was reading off a script. She told me the invitation had been a mistake. Said Derek sent it without checking with Haley first, and Haley wasn't okay with me coming. She kept going, explaining that my being there would cause unnecessary tension, and it'd just be easier for everyone if I stayed away. According to her, she was calling to avoid any awkwardness the day of the party. She wasn't yelling, and she didn't sound emotional, but she was firm. She wasn't asking me not to come. She was telling me not to. I listened without cutting her off. Once she'd finished, I didn't argue, didn't ask questions. I just said, I understand, and hung up. Right after that, I canceled the book order. Got the refund the next day. Then I opened my contacts. I found my mom's number and blocked it. Did the same with my dad's and Haley's. I wasn't angry. I just felt like that phone call had drawn a final line, and there was no reason to keep pretending otherwise. A few days later, I started getting emails from my dad. The first one was short and confused, asking why his calls weren't going through. When I didn't respond, he sent another. In that one, he said Mom told him I was ignoring them now. He accused me of acting like a spoiled kid and said I was being unnecessarily cruel to my mother. He claimed she was just trying to keep the peace and avoid a messy scene. Then he said blocking them was way out of line and that I was the reason our family was so broken. He wrapped up by demanding that I unblock their numbers and call Mom to apologize for what he called hostile behavior. I haven't replied to any of those messages. I've moved them to a separate folder and left them there. In my mind, it's simple. They told me I wasn't welcome. I just responded accordingly. I've accepted their decision by making the separation official. I don't see the point in keeping communication open with people who actively exclude me. It's like they expect me to be on standby when they want me around, but otherwise, I'm supposed to stay out of sight. I'm not okay with that. So I made my choice, to cut ties and turn our long, quiet estrangement into something permanent. Update 1. I really appreciate everyone who took the time to leave a comment or share their thoughts. Most folks seem to agree that I'm not in the wrong here. Some pointed out that there's clearly more to the story, and they're right. I left out a lot of the history because I wanted feedback specifically on how I handled the recent situation, not everything that came before it. Still, I get why people want more context to understand how things got to this point. So here it is. I'm not telling this to get sympathy. I just want to lay out the facts as they actually happened. You have to go back 15 years to when I turned 18. Haley, my sister, was 16 at the time. Around then, she started acting differently, secretive. She'd be out late more often, always glued to her phone, constantly texting. At first, I brushed it off. Typical teenager stuff, right? But eventually, I found out she was dating a guy who was a lot older than her, early 20s, probably 21 or 22. Our parents were strict, no-nonsense types, and I knew there was no way they'd be okay with her seeing someone that much older. I didn't really have much involvement in it. I wasn't her parent. I had my own life to worry about. I was working part-time, saving money, and getting ready to head off to college in the fall. I did talk to her once about it. I told her she was playing with fire and needed to be careful, but I didn't threaten to tell Mom and Dad. I figured it was her life, and she had to make her own decisions. But that changed one night. I got home late from work, sometime after midnight, and caught her trying to sneak back into the house through a window. I stopped her. I didn't yell or come at her angrily, but I told her straight up. This was getting out of hand. Lying to our parents like this wasn't just rebellious anymore. It was risky, dangerous even. I told her she needed to come clean about the relationship. And I gave her a choice. Either she told them by the end of the weekend, or I would. I wasn't trying to be the bad guy. I was genuinely worried about her. Sunday evening rolled around, and she still hadn't said anything to them. I was preparing myself to step in and do the right thing as her older brother. But then things took a turn I never could have expected. My parents called me into the living room. Their faces were pale and serious. Haley was already there, sitting silently on the couch, red-eyed and clearly crying. My dad said Haley had told them something serious. Then my mom looked at me and said Haley had accused me of something terrible. She told them I had been sexually abusing her for years. I froze. I was completely blindsided. I denied it immediately, stunned and sick to my stomach. I tried to explain that she was lying to cover her tracks, to keep them from learning about her older boyfriend. I told them about the ultimatum I'd given her just days earlier. But none of it mattered. They didn't want to hear it. It was like my words bounced right off them. My mom broke down crying. My dad looked at me like I was a monster. He said I was sick. They didn't ask questions. They didn't even hesitate. They told me to go to my room, pack a bag with just the essentials, and leave the house. Once I'd done that, they told me they had already called the police. That night, everything I knew about life was destroyed. One day, I was a regular high school senior. The next, I was being arrested because I was legally an adult and she was a minor. The system didn't work in my favor. My family didn't stand by me. I had no support. I was stuck with a public defender, and the whole thing came down to her word against mine. There was no physical evidence backing up her story, but there was none disproving it either. The case hinged entirely on Haley's testimony in court. She was convincing. She cried. She gave this elaborate, completely made-up story full of disturbing details. When my lawyer tried to bring up her secret relationship with the older guy as a possible reason she might lie, the prosecution twisted it. They said it was victim-blaming. That made me look even worse. Then my parents testified against me. They talked about how I'd become more withdrawn and moody in the months leading up to all this. Normal teen stuff, but they used it as supposed evidence that I was guilty. They believed what they wanted to believe. They latched onto her version of events because, for them, it made more sense. Or maybe it just hurt less than thinking their daughter could lie like that. In the end, I wasn't convicted of the most serious charges, but I was found guilty of a lesser felony sex offense. The judge gave me probation, but the real blow was that I was required to register as a sex offender. That label followed me everywhere. My plans for college vanished. I couldn't get financial aid. Every job application had that dreaded question about felony convictions. The few times I told the truth, it usually ended the interview before it even began. Finding a place to live wasn't any easier. There were endless rules about how close I could live to schools or parks, or anywhere kids might be. For 5 years, I had to show up at the local police station on a regular basis. I had to report my address, where I worked, what car I drove, even any social media accounts I used. There was no privacy. My entire life was under a microscope. After the trial, my family shut the door on me completely. I was cut off by everyone: parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. It was like I'd been erased. I did my time on probation, served all 5 years on the registry. I got used to living quietly, keeping to myself. Eventually, I found a job working in a warehouse, one of the few places where the background checks weren't as strict. I found a small apartment in an area that met the legal restrictions. And from there, I just built a life. Not much of one, but it was mine. Small, quiet, isolated. But it kept me going. I never reached out to my family again. Never even considered it. This is the history behind everything that happened recently. This is why getting that birthday party invitation out of nowhere shook me. And it's also why being disinvited didn't surprise me one bit. Honestly, it didn't even sting. It just reinforced what I already knew. There's nothing left to repair. That bridge burned a long time ago. Blocking their numbers wasn't petty. From where I'm standing, it was closure. Update 2. Then something happened I never could have seen coming. A few days after I shared that last update, I got a phone call from an unknown number. Normally, I don't pick those up. 9 times out of 10, it's a scammer or something worse. But for whatever reason, that day, I answered. The voice on the other end sounded professional. Calm. He introduced himself as a private investigator. Right away, my mind went to the worst-case scenario. I thought maybe my parents had hired someone to dig up dirt on me, or to stir up more drama. I was ready to hang up on the guy before he could say anything else. I told him I wasn't interested. But before I could end the call, he said, "Please, just give me 1 minute. I'm not working for your parents. I was hired by Derek, your sister's husband." That stopped me cold. I couldn't make sense of it. Why would my sister's husband be hiring a PI, let alone have him call me? The investigator must have picked up on my confusion. He said Derek had reached out to him several months ago because he was growing more and more concerned about Haley's behavior. According to him, things in their marriage had gotten rocky. Derek described Haley as being dishonest on a deeper level. She would lie about things that didn't even matter. She'd blow up out of nowhere. They'd have massive, emotional fights over nothing. Derek said it felt like something was broken in her, but he couldn't figure out what. So he hired the investigator to look into it. At first, it was just a background check. Derek was worried she might be cheating on him. But the deeper the PI dug into her finances, her social media, her past, the more he uncovered. Eventually, he landed on the incident that had flipped my entire life upside down when she was 16. That accusation. That lie. And this is where everything changed. The investigator told me that as part of his work, he had recovered data from an old cloud storage account Haley had used back when she was a teenager, something she had probably forgotten even existed. In that archive were old logs from an instant messaging app she and her friends used to use. He found one specific conversation. It happened over the 3 days between when I gave her the ultimatum and when she made the accusation. He started reading parts of it to me over the phone. I just sat there, silent. In the messages, Haley was panicked. She told her best friend that I had found out about the older guy she was dating, and she was terrified that I was going to tell our parents. She said it would ruin everything. Her friend asked what she was going to do, and that's when she laid out her plan. Word for word. She said she needed to do something big, something that would make sure our parents never believed a single word I said again. She said she had to make me the enemy. Then, with chilling calm, she told her friend what she was going to do, accuse me of touching her. She described it as the perfect move. Something so serious, no one would ever question it. She believed it would solve all her problems. Get me kicked out. Keep her secret relationship protected. Erase me from the picture. The investigator told me he had already shown the full conversation logs, every message, every timestamp, to Derek a few days earlier. He said Derek was absolutely devastated. He had been married to this woman, had a child with her, and now he was realizing that the foundation of their entire relationship had been built on a lie on that lie. Then he told me something else. Derek wanted to talk to me. Personally. He said Derek felt awful about what had happened to me. He wanted to help in any way he could. The investigator gave me his personal number and encouraged me to reach out. After the call ended, I just sat there. I didn't move, didn't think, didn't even breathe for a while. It was too much to process. After about an hour of sitting with everything, I finally picked up the phone and dialed the number Derek had given me. He answered on the first ring. His voice was tight, heavy, like someone carrying 1,000 pounds of regret. The first thing he said was, "I'm so sorry." He didn't stop there. He kept repeating it, over and over. He told me he had no idea. Said he always felt like something about her story didn't add up, but any time he tried to bring it up, Jenny would fly off the handle. He said she'd get so angry, so defensive, that he eventually just stopped asking. He told me, flat out, that he believed me. Then he explained the whole birthday party thing. Said the invitation had been his idea. He had a gut feeling, like something about what the family had told him wasn't the whole truth. He didn't know what, but he wanted to test the waters. Maybe open a door, even just a crack. When Jenny found out he'd sent that invite, she lost it. Total meltdown. Screamed at him for hours. Threatened to take their son and leave if he ever reached out to me again. That was the moment, he said, when he knew something was seriously wrong. That's what pushed him to hire the private investigator. We talked for close to half an hour. Before we hung up, he promised to send me everything, every message, every document the PI had uncovered. He told me he'd stand by me. Said he'd even testify if it came to that. He just wanted to help make things right. I told him I needed some time to process all of it. Update 3. Everything that's happened since that call has moved fast and hit hard. Derek kept his word. The very next day, he emailed me the full, unedited transcripts of Jenny's messages, along with the investigator's full report. Reading through it all, it was surreal. You'd think I'd feel rage or grief. But I didn't. Not really. It was just a cold, quiet confirmation of something I'd already known deep down for 15 years. This was the proof. Derek called me again the day after he sent the files. Told me he confronted her. He waited until their son was asleep. Then he sat Jenny down and handed her printed copies of the messages. He said she immediately went on the offensive, denied everything, claimed the documents were fake, accused him of teaming up with me to destroy her life. She screamed, cried, raged. But Derek didn't budge. He stayed calm, just kept pointing to the evidence. When her anger didn't work, she switched tactics. She crumbled, started sobbing loud, gut-wrenching sobs, and finally admitted it. All of it. She confessed that she had made it up. Every word. She tried to spin it, of course. Said she was just a scared 16-year-old who didn't want to get in trouble. Claimed she didn't realize what her lie would do to me. But Derek told me her tears felt fake, like she wasn't actually sorry, just desperate for pity. One last manipulation. That conversation didn't end with her apology. It escalated fast when Derek told her he couldn't stay married to her. That's when she snapped. She physically attacked him, scratching, hitting completely out of control. Derek had to restrain her just to stop her from hurting either of them. Once she finally wore herself out, he left the room, locked himself in the office, and called his lawyer. The next morning, he filed for divorce. He also filed for an emergency custody order, asking for temporary sole custody of their son. He cited her confession, her history of emotional manipulation, and her violent behavior as proof she was unfit to be a parent. And then, the fallout hit like a shockwave. Derek, trying to be fully transparent, and maybe just done with the lies, sent the entire report, messages and all, to my parents. Didn't take long for them to respond. My dad called me repeatedly, but he was blocked. I didn't hear the voicemails. Didn't want to. Then, the very next day, they showed up at my apartment building. I still don't know exactly how they got my address. Maybe the registry made it possible. My information had been public for years. Either way, I was home when it happened. They rang the buzzer to my apartment for what felt like forever. I didn't answer. So they stood down in the lobby and started shouting up at my door. I heard everything. My mom was crying. But not for me. Not for the 15 years of my life that were ripped away. No, she was crying for Jenny. She sobbed about how her daughter's life was now ruined. She begged me to talk to Derek. She wanted me to convince him to call off the divorce. She pleaded with me to forgive Jenny so that, and I quote, our family could start to heal. It was unreal. They wanted me, the one she falsely accused, the one they abandoned, to clean up the wreckage caused by the truth finally coming out. I didn't say a word. Just sat on my couch, listening to the same broken record I'd heard in different forms for most of my life. After about an hour, they gave up and left. Once they were gone, I picked up my phone. I called a lawyer. He came highly recommended, specialized in wrongful convictions. We met the next day. I gave him everything Derek had sent me. The transcripts. The investigator's report. He read through it all carefully, and by the end, he looked at me and said, we've got a very strong case. He was right. The process has already begun. Final update. It's been a few months since that last post. Things have finally settled. This is the last update I'll ever write, because the story's over now. There's nothing left to add. Legally, things moved quickly. Just like my lawyer predicted, we petitioned the court to vacate my conviction, using the new evidence as the foundation. The prosecutor's office reviewed everything and didn't even contest the motion. Jenny's own words were undeniable. There was a court hearing. It was short. I showed up, but I didn't have to say anything. The judge reviewed the facts, nodded, and struck the conviction from the record. Just like that. The charge is gone. My name has been removed from the registry. On paper, it's like it never happened. But of course, it did. Jenny's world has changed, too. The divorce went through. Because of the evidence, her confession, her manipulation, the outburst, Derek got full custody of their son. Legal and physical. Jenny gets limited visitation, and only under supervision. Derek keeps me updated every now and then. He feels like he owes me that much. He says Jenny's in therapy, but from what he's heard, she's still pointing fingers at everyone but herself. My parents? They've chosen their side. Derek told me they're all in on Gina, supporting her emotionally, financially, you name it. They've sunk a good chunk of their savings into her legal mess and whatever she's doing now to stay afloat. And me? I keep going. The conviction is gone. I'm no longer on the registry. That shadow I lived under for 15 years has finally lifted. But if you're expecting a happy ending, there isn't one. There was no big moment when the gavel dropped. No flood of relief. No sense of justice being served. The damage is still there. The years I lost didn't magically come back. Nothing's been undone, only acknowledged. That's the end of this story. I've got nothing else to say. No more updates coming after this.